The desert wind kicked up red dust as the road to the town of Dry Hollow came into view. The morning hung heavy like lead, and even before the sun had risen, blood was already pooled beneath the wooden post in the middle of the square. A girl was tied with her hands behind her back, hanging upside down from the pole, her blood dripping into the dust. A crude sign on an old board read, "Witch. Stole medicine." The townspeople walked by in silence, as if it were just another morning. Only one man stopped. Harlan Creed, a rancher who lived alone out in Coyote Valley, pulled his hat low over his brow and stared at the body swaying in the wind. Her skin was dark brown, a bruise blooming across one cheek, her eyes half open. There was no pleading in them, no fear, only defiance. Harlan said nothing. He turned away and stepped into the general store to buy salt, a knife, and lamp oil. The storekeeper growled, "Stay out of that mess, Creed." Harlan nodded, paid, and walked back to his black horse waiting outside. But as he passed the girl, their eyes met purely by chance. That looked like an old memory jolting back to life. The same eyes that had kept him awake for years. He walked faster, but his thoughts were uneasy. That night, the fire burned low in his lonely tent. Harlan could not sleep. The sound of rope tightening against the girl's skin haunted his mind. Near dawn, he got up and tied a rope to his saddle, and he took a knife. Dawn had not yet reached the crooked rooftops of Dry Hollow when Harlan Creed returned. No one noticed him riding around the back, following the narrow path from the sparse grazing field. The town remained still, not with peace, but with the kind of silence that prowls like a wild beast waiting to strike. The girl was still hanging upside down, her body now barely conscious, lips cracked dry, hair matted with dust and blood. The sign swayed in the early breeze. The red letters smudged slightly, but the message remained clear. Punishment. Harlan dismounted, his steps as quiet as a shadow. A sharp knife was strapped to his side. He scanned the surroundings, no people, no sounds. Then, like lightning, he moved toward the wooden post. The blade sliced through the rope. The sound was as soft as a leaf falling, but to Harlan, it roared like thunder. The girl collapsed, weightless, yet heavy with a choice he could never take back. He caught her limp body, her breath faint as a dying flame. Her eyes opened slightly and met his. Still that same gaze, resilient, not begging for mercy. Then a dog barked, sharp and sudden, from behind the blacksmith's forge. Harlan did not wait. He hoisted her onto Midnight's back, galloped through the wild grass, and disappeared into the cactus thickets like wind. No one followed yet. By the time they reached Coyote Valley, the sun had just begun to pour fire over the parched fields. He laid her down on a blanket inside the old cabin, lit a fire, boiled water, cleaned the blood, and washed her wounds. He did not know her name. He did not know why he was doing this. All he knew was that this time, he could not turn away. Outside, the wind began to shift, a sign that something was coming. Night came early on the high plains. Wind howled through the rock crevices, carrying the scent of burnt grass and old ashes. Harlan sat on the porch, his gun laid across his thigh, staring blankly toward the darkening horizon. Inside, the girl was still burning with fever. Each breath she took struck his chest like a blow, because it reminded him of another figure long ago, trembling through a fever. He had lit the fire and boiled the water then, too. His daughter. She had not survived. The flickering firelight cast shadows on the girl's face, beautiful, determined. Her wrists still bore marks from the ropes, her legs swollen from being hung too long. He did not ask anything, just poured more water into the tin cup and set it near her. Then he stepped outside. He could not bear the sound of her weak breathing any longer. A few miles away, at the bend where the wind turned back, 3 riders moved silently under the pale moon. They did not sing, did not call out. They kept quiet, the kind of quiet that belongs to hunters of men. One of them spat into the dirt. "That Creed bastard is hiding the girl. Bet on it." Inside the cabin, the girl opened her eyes. Her vision was still blurry, but something deep inside already knew. She was still feverish, but her mind had returned. She looked around the small cabin, aged wood, a rusted nail holding a rifle. This was not hell, and it was not the town. On the porch, Harlan sat like carved stone, fingers toying with the edge of his blade. Not because he needed it, but because he needed something sharp to keep his mind awake. "You lived," he muttered, unsure if he was speaking to her or to himself. "This time, no one dies." A dry rustle rode the wind tree branches or hooves, he could not tell. But his hand was already on the gun. Not out of fear, but because he knew peace was only the surface. And soon, the ground would tremble again. If you like this story, please comment number 1. Let's continue. Harlan woke her with the soft crackling of the fire. The sky had not fully brightened yet, but the flames cast a warm glow across the girl's forehead. Her fever was gone. Her breathing was steady, her eyes opened slowly. She said nothing, just looked at him, puzzled. "My name is Harlan," he said. "This place is called Red Mesa. Nothing here but rocks, dust, and forgetfulness." She licked her dry lips and gave a slight nod. "Aria." The name drifted like a breeze in the cold morning air. He nodded back, asking nothing more. A name was enough for now. Harlan handed her a bowl of warm water steeped with wild mint leaves. She drank slowly, her eyes never leaving his hand. A hand covered in scar cuts, burns, gun wounds. A hand shaped by years of hardship. While she sipped thin porridge, he went behind the cabin, opened an old wooden chest, and pulled out a map and a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside were the faded insignia of a cavalry unit, a torn piece of paper bearing the name of a dead town, El Suenoand, a small pouch holding a silver necklace. Harlan looked at them like a man staring at a grave. "They will come," Aria said, her voice thin as mist. "They never let anyone go." He did not ask who. Her tone said enough. What followed her was not just people. It was memory. It was doom. "Then we do not run," Harlan replied. "We make them remember this place." Aria looked at him, and for the first time, there was a flicker of light in her eyes. By noon, they headed west of Red Mesa where sheer cliffs formed a narrow pass. Harlan pointed to the rocks. "One way in, one way out. If we hold for a day, that is enough." They stacked stones, strung wires, scattered cactus thorns, and placed old shards of mirror to catch the light. Aria tied trap cords with trembling hands, but she was steady. She had survived worse. Now she was learning to fight. As the sun dipped low, they sat on the edge of the cliff, sharing dried meat. Neither spoke, but between them, something had begun. Not trust, but need. Wind howled through the gorge again. In the distance, hoofbeats echoed. Aria closed her eyes. Harlan gripped his knife. Tonight, the stones would remember blood, and the dawn would not wait for the slow-handed. Night fell, and Red Mesa sank into silence. But Harlan did not sleep. Neither did Aria. They sat on opposite sides of the narrow pass, eyes fixed on the distant darkness where the hunters would come from. Nights on the high plains were bitter cold. The wind from the canyon carried the scent of old blood and fire smoke. Aria gripped a sharp wooden stake, whittled from a broken broom handle. "Are you not afraid?" she asked. "Of course I am," Harlan replied, his voice flat as the earth. "But fear does not save anyone. It only makes your hands slow." The sound of hoofbeats echoed faint, then clearer. 3 horses. A voice hissed through clenched teeth. "I see smoke," Harlan signaled. They crouched behind a rocky ledge. The wind died. The whole world seemed to hold its breath. Then, footsteps. Cautious. Searching. As the first man stepped into the pass, his boot caught a wire, and a cascade of stones fell from above. He screamed in shock. The other 2 drew their guns just as Harlan fired the first shot. Gunfire cracked through the canyon. Sparks lit the dark, then vanished. One man dropped instantly. The last tried to flee, but Aria was already in his path, holding a shard of mirror that flashed light into his eyes. He staggered. Harlan stepped in behind and knocked him out with the butt of his rifle. When the quiet returned, Harlan looked at Aria. She stood there, blood streaking her cheek, hands still trembling, but her eyes did not blink. "Did you kill?" he asked. "No," she said. "Good. No need to yet." They buried the dead one beside the canyon wall. The other 2 were tied up and left at the pass. Harlan used charcoal to write a message on the rock. "If you want to live, do not come looking for me." Aria looked at the words, then looked at him. "They would still come," Harlan nodded. "And I will still be waiting." The sun rose slowly over Red Mesa, casting pale golden light onto the cracked stone ledges. Arya sat on the porch, holding a damp cloth, carefully wiping blood from her weapon. Harlan said nothing. He simply watched the footprints left behind, a silent record of the hunt. "They will come back with more," Arya said, her voice tired but not weak. Harlan answered with a nod of his chin toward the south, where the dry valley lay still and waiting. "We could lead them that way. Narrow pass, easier to ambush." Arya shook her head. "Do you want to keep killing?" Harlan looked at her. His eyes did not speak of killing. They spoke of this: no more hanging bodies. They walked all morning, following a dried-up creek bed and the gray streaks of ash left from last year's wildfire. The black dust clung to their boots, and Clothisa's stain not easily washed away. At the heart of the valley stood a half-burned wooden cross, leaning into the earth. Arya stopped. "They used to hang people here," she said, touching the charred wood. "I know," Harlan replied. "I saw it once and walked away." Arya turned to him. "And now I stand." They built a lookout post from stone and dry wood. From there, they could see every road into the valley. Arya scattered powdered herbs and roots along the path signals, for those who knew how to read them. Harlan stacked firewood in the shape of a cross if discovered. The fire would be their final warning. By late afternoon, the wind rose hard, carrying the sound of hoofbeats. They were coming. This time there were 5. Leading them was a man with a red scarf, a broken nose, and one crooked eye. Behind him were the 2 Harlan had knocked out now, hunting him again. They stopped about 200 steps from the post. No words were spoken, only hands tightening on gun grips. Arya crouched behind a dirt ridge, holding a knife, steadying her breath. Harlan did not hide. He stepped forward, slowly, as if he had nothing left to lose. "I let you go," he called out, "but you still come, looking to die." The man in the red scarf sneered. "We came for the little savage's head." Arya stepped into view. "Come get it." In that brief moment, the wind tangled her hair, and the old ashes rose like ghosts. The first gunshot rang out, but not from the pursuers. It came from the hunted. Ash drifted thick in the air. Gunshots still echoed among the stones. 3 horses lay dead on the trail, blood soaking into the sand. Arya stood still, unblinking. Her blade was stained with blood, but her grip remained firm. 2 of them ran, she said, her breath short. "Are we not chasing them?" Harlan shook his head. "They will carry the message. Let the ones behind them know." He stepped over the body of the man with the red scarf, pulling the bullet from the still-warm Colt revolver. "They will not forget this place." "Good," Arya replied. They gathered the bodies, not to bury them, but to cover them with old cloth, just enough to keep the scavengers away, not enough to hide what had happened. That was a choice. That was a message. Evening drew near. Red sunlight crawled across the rocks like flowing blood. Harlan lit a fire for the first time in days. Arya mixed herbs, old medicine blended into ashen water. No one spoke. No one needed to complain. "Have you ever killed for something like this?" Arya asked, eyes fixed on the flame. Harlan looked up. "For what?" "For something that was not yours. For someone not of your blood." Wind howled through the canyon. Harlan did not answer. He held the silence. Arya said nothing more. She wrapped the herbs and placed them beside him. Their hands brushed, just for a moment, not out of affection, but because they had come this far together, side by side in the face of death. That night, they did not sleep. From afar came the snap of a breaking branch. A horse's silhouette darted along the cliff and vanished. Harlan lay still, eyes open, hand on his rifle. Arya breathed steadily but not deeply. She too was awake. Before dawn, they left the post. Harlan carried the hand-drawn map. Arya carried a pouch of herbs and a carved piece of wood etched with the words, "This is the land of the ones who survived." They planted that sign right in the middle of the pass, where all could see it. Then they withdrew westward, into the maze of dry cypress trees. Arya looked back one last time. "They will return, to see that this place is no longer afraid," Harlan said. The first light of day pierced the canopy like a thin blade, and beneath the wooden sign, the ash still danced, but it was no longer the dust of death. It had become the evidence of resistance. The first rain of the season came without warning. Harlan and Arya sheltered beneath a low rock ledge, water dripping steadily onto their shoulders. Arya tilted her head slightly, listening to the even patter of rain on the ground. The sound was familiar, like an old heartbeat buried long ago. "How long has it been?" she asked. "Since you last saw rain." Harlan gave a soft laugh. "Last time, I was still wearing a badge." Arya asked nothing more. Some things were better left unspoken, meant only to be felt. She took off her boots, letting her bare feet touch the wet earth. A real moment. A moment alive. The wind carried the scent of wild mint from the canyon. "Tomorrow," Harlan said, "we reach the crossroads. We will have to choose. East is flat, easy to travel, but easy to be seen. West is rough terrain, but no one follows that way. We take the west." Arya answered without hesitation. Harlan nodded. "You are not afraid of being alone?" Arya smiled. "Solitude has never killed me. Lies have." They sat in silence, the rain falling gently. In that stillness, what went unspoken echoed louder than words. The rain ended the way it began, softly. Without warning, Arya slowly slipped her boots back on. Harlan brushed the water from his rifle. Then they stood and walked on. On the wet path, their footprints pressed deep. Behind them, only the sound of insects. Ahead, jagged cliffs stood waiting. That night, they camped in a mountain hollow, just big enough for 2 people and a small fire. The wind was not strong, but the cold seeped from the rocks straight into the bones. Arya sat carving a piece of ginger with a dull blade, her hands trembling slightly. Harlan watched quietly from across the fire, his eyes searching the flickering flames for something. "I was wounded here once," he said, pointing to his side. "That year, the bullet did not kill me, but the scar stayed." Arya looked at him. "Why keep it? You should have forgotten." Harlan let out a humorless laugh. "Forgetting is easy. Remembering is what's hard. Scars are reminders we survived." Silence fell between them like ash. Arya handed him the ginger, and he took it, pouring hot water into a rusted tin cup. "When I was a child," Arya said, "I had scars too, but not from bullets." Harlan did not ask. He simply passed her the ginger, water hot, sharp, and strong, like a memory with no name. They drank. In the distance, a wolf howled. Harlan tightened his grip on the rifle. "Tomorrow, we reach the Bluestone Pass. Someone will be waiting." "Who?" "An old face. Betrayed me once. Wants to make it right." Arya frowned. "I do not trust traitors." Harlan nodded. "Neither do I. But sometimes, one betrayal can lead to lifelong loyalty." The fire burned low. Its light slowly receded into the dark. The Bluestone Pass appeared like a crack in the earth deep, cold and silent. Harlan led the way, rifle slung across his back. Arya followed, her eyes fixed on the silent shadows of stone. In the middle of the pass, a man waited. Thin, gray-bearded, hat pulled low. His saddle was worn, his horse trembling from the wind. He looked up when he saw them, but did not reach for his gun. "Cassidy," Harlan said, not as a greeting, but as a judgment. Cassidy gave a small nod. "I do not ask for forgiveness, just for one chance to be right." Arya's hand tightened around the knife at her side. "Why should we trust you?" Cassidy looked at her. "Because I once hung someone like you. And I still have not slept right since." Wind howled through the cliffs. For a moment, no one spoke. Harlan stepped closer. "Talk. Where are they?" Cassidy pointed south. "By the old outpost. 3 of them. One is Glenth, one who burned the Apache village that year." Arya froze. That name was not just a man. It was an entire nightmare. "I want to go with you," Cassidy said, "to finish what I started." Harlan stared at him for a long time. Then he nodded. That night, the 3 of them sat around another fire this time. No one spoke. Arya looked up at the sky, stars scattered like scars that would never heal. Harlan sharpened his knife. Cassidy slept, holding his old rifle like a man cradling his past. Before sleep came, Arya spoke softly, not sure to whom. "Tomorrow, if we die, at least it will be for something worth believing in." Harlan said nothing. He just reached into his coat and pulled out an old Itima leather cord with a silver ring tied to the end. He placed it between them. "It belonged to the last person I could not save." Arya asked no questions. She only nodded. The wind blew gently. That night, the three were no longer three but one. Of loss, of redemption, and of resolve. Thank you for listening, and do not forget to subscribe to follow the next part of the story.